nerve due to increased intraocular pressure and how timely intervention can slow its progression. Experts also discussed available treatment options, including medication, laser therapy, and surgery, stressing that while glaucoma cannot be cured, it can be managed effectively if detected early. Speaking at the event, Dr. Loretta Opoku, an ophthalmologist at Tema, explained that glaucoma is a leading cause of irreversible blindness, often developing without noticeable symptoms until significant vision loss occurs.
So generally for adults, most of the time they would not present with any symptoms or signs in the early stages. That is why, like I mentioned earlier, we call it the silent thief of sight, because when it begins in the early stages, there aren't much symptoms. The vision is lost in the periphery, and because of that, you can see most of the things in front of you, and you can do most of the things that you would normally do with your vision. And so until it becomes very late, when you notice that you have lost some of your fields on the sights most of the time, and then you tend to need more light, you cannot see things that you could previously see, those faces don't look so clear, and by that time, it's actually in the later stages. And so generally, you will not have signs. So the emphasis is on screening, getting your eyes checked in the early stages when you don't have the signs. And then when it's picked at that time, we can initiate treatment and you don't get to the late stage where you end up with blindness.
World Glaucoma Day is observed annually to increase awareness and encourage early diagnosis.
Happenings in the port and shipping industry over the last week. We're now going for our word or phrase of the day. And remember, the word or phrase of the day has been fashioned to bring you up to speed with the terminologies and jargons we use in the shipping industry. Today's word is barge. Barge.
Barge. A barge is a flat-bottomed vessel designed primarily for transporting cargo in inland waterways such as rivers and canals and in harbors. Typically, barges are unpowered and require towing by tugboats or propulsion by towboats to navigate. They are essential in maritime industry for moving large quantities of goods efficiently over water.
And now straight on to our health and safety tip for the week. And today's word or tip is safety signage. Safety signage.
Safety signage. It is used to highlight potential hazards and provide important safety information in the workplace. It helps promote a safe environment by keeping employees informed about safety precautions and policies. The next time you see a safety signage, kindly comply.
Okay, so we are zooming into our discussion proper tonight. We're taking a look at the state of Ghana shipping industry and how to empower the private sector for growth. And we all know how we've always often talked about the shipping sector in Ghana. Gone are the days, or once upon a time, there was the Black Star Line. It's sublimed due to various reasons, just like Ghana Airways we've always talked about. And the system or the sector has evolved over the years. And so what's the current state of our shipping sector? It's a sector that we cannot do without, given its, as it were, strategic importance to the national economy of this country. And so every player in the sector is described as a crucial player as far as the shipping sector is concerned. We have various players and interest groups in this particular sector, but the private sector is actually the huge or the biggest of them all. And so tonight we're trying to explore what the state of our shipping sector is and what can be done to, as it were, empower the private sector, whom we've always described as engine of growth, to ensure that we have a stable shipping sector in Ghana. And so tonight we are privileged to introduce to us Mr. Stanley Raja Aholu, who is the president of the Ghana Chamber of Shipping. President of Ghana Chamber of Shipping. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Good evening, Kennedy.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Also in the studios, Dr. Amwako Mensah. Dr. Isaac Amwako Mensah is the president and chief executive officer, so to speak, of CAGL Group. He's in the studios with us. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Good evening, Ken. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm terrific by His grace. Thank you for asking.
Thanks.
All right. So, gentlemen, we're glad to have you. We're supposed to have Madame Maria Ugbobu, Ogbubo. Yes, via Zoom. If we are lucky to establish her, we understand she's on. Good evening, madam, and welcome to Iron Port.
Good evening, Kennedy.
We are grateful that you have obliged us from your base in faraway. I don't know whether that should be the state or where are you?
I'm based in Accra, but I'm in London at the
moment. Awesome. All right. So she is a maritime associate, and she's also joined us. She's also bringing some perspectives to the discussion. And so, since you are online, I probably would want to begin with you before I come in studio and find out from you, from an infrastructure development perspective, what do you think are the most pressing gaps, if you have been able to identify some in the Ghana shipping sector, first of all?
Okay, thanks, Kennedy. And Ghana's shipping sector, first of all, the shipping sector begins with ships. It must revolve around ships. Ships are the center of any shipping industry. And as it is now, as per the register of ships that we have, or what is reflected on UNCTAD and IMO websites, Ghana has about 54 or so vessels on her register, which is a very low level of ship ownership. So that would be the first gulf, not a gap, that needs to be filled in terms of infrastructure. We need to have some ships.
Right.
And these ships are essential for intra-regional trade. I'm sure we'll come to that in the discussion. Apart from that, ships need to be maintained and repaired. And so it's important that you have ship repair yards to support the ships that we have in the shipping industry. For Ghana, I think we also need vessels on the Volta Lake to support our movement of bulk cargo and liquid cargo up north on the Volta River. So we need some barges, as your word for today showed us. We need additional barge infrastructure. Thankfully, the Volta Lake Transport Company is doing something about that now, as I'm aware. We could also do with some passenger terminals. There's an uptake in cruise activity in Ghana, especially Takoradi is attracting a lot of cruise vessels. We could do with some passenger terminals in the port of Takoradi. Finally, with the trend towards decarbonization, there's so much we could do in terms of shore power, battery storage, etc. But let me stop there for now. Thank you.
All right, so let's get to your second question, which has to do with the fact that you've been able to raise about $140 million in project finance for a maritime infrastructure project. What are the biggest challenges in structuring and financing large-scale maritime projects in Ghana? Have you been able to identify some?
Yes, and so just a little background since I have you. So this project is what we call the Takoradi Floating Dock Project. It's a partnership between Primary Docks and Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, a flagship project that will see the construction of a world-class ship repair facility in the port of Takoradi. This project, once it's on stream, will be generating upwards of $40 million in revenue per year and employing at its peak some 450 direct skilled jobs. So you can see the potential impact it will have on the economy. Now, what are the challenges? We found that there was limited understanding of the maritime sector among our funders and financiers, not just in Ghana, but across the continent. The maritime sector is a bit of a mystery. And so that lack of understanding or the lack of in-depth understanding of the sector makes it difficult for funders to be able to assess the risks and therefore make capital available to the project. So that's one challenge we experienced. Another challenge we experienced was the lack of capital or early stage capital to finance the development of the project. So at the very beginning, you need to pay for studies to be conducted, environmental impact assessment, traffic studies, concept design. All these studies need to be paid for in order to develop the project to reach bankability. But that comes at a cost, and for private sector, it can be quite heavy cost to bear. And so the lack of capital for that stage of financing was a major challenge. Finally, I'd like to talk about support. We now experienced there was limited support for the project from a government perspective. But thankfully, the only reason why we were successful is that there were a few people in the public sector who supported this project, and including former President Nana Akufo-Addo took personal interest in the project and was able to intervene at some points in order to make that financing a reality. We also had support from the Director Generals of GPHA, both Mr. Anamu and Mr. Luguje, both former Director Generals, whose support was essential in getting the project to cross the bankability line. So in summary, a lack of support from the public sector was a challenge. Early stage financing was a challenge, and lastly, limited understanding of the maritime sector.
Awesome, right. Stay with us. We'll come back to you, Madam Maria. But let me come to Mr. Aholu and find out from you. As president of the Ghana Chamber of Shipping in our country, you've been in this industry for a very long while. You've been a key player, big player all this while. I mean, I can mention a litany of organizations that you have run towards enhancing and improving the Ghana shipping industry. I just want to find out from you candidly what your assessment of our shipping industry as of now is.
Thank you very much, Kennedy. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
To allow us to come talk about the sector.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Metro TV, particularly Eye on the Port, and to your audience as well.
Absolutely.
For giving us this nice opportunity on Sunday evening like this. And of course, I'm here both in my capacity as the president of the Ghana Chamber of Shipping, and by way of introduction, the Ghana Chamber of Shipping is a think tank, an independent think tank, with the ultimate aim of allowing private sector to influence policy on shipping, and to assist in strategic decision making, as far as the sector is concerned. So that's the role I play now, and so I'll be speaking also partly from that point of view, the private sector point of view. But directly to your question, what is the state of the maritime sector in Ghana? I think that to understand this fully, we need to have a view of the different, or the two main facets of the sector. I say the international shipping that facilitates our international trade. And when I say international trade, I'm talking about imports and exports. That international trade is carried by sea, mainly 95% seaborne. In respect of that facet of our shipping sector or maritime sector, and I use the word shipping because maritime sector encompasses things beyond mainly shipping. You can go to the fishing sector, the fishery sector, and so on and so forth. But let's dwell on the shipping aspects of it. And so, as far as that is concerned, that aspect of our shipping industry is concerned, I think that we own the ports, Port of Takoradi and Tema, That's the main two infrastructure that we own, state-owned and run by GPHA. But from the ports down to the lowest aspect of the maritime value chain or the shipping value chain, we own very little. And so we have that aspect of our shipping doing very well because we are being served by international shipping lines. Right. They carry our cargoes in and out of the country, and we have very, if you like, blue chip companies that are doing this. You have the Maersk, and they know their trade, and they're very good at it, and they're serving us quite well. Of course, the cost of serving us is something that we've worried about and talked about immensely. I mean, you're talking about freight and all the other charges that go to bringing cargo in and taking cargo out. So that's one aspect of it. And we are well connected to all our trading partners, China, Europe, and the rest of it, through the services being provided by international shipping lines. The other aspect of our shipping industry that one needs to talk about is the local shipping industry. I'm talking about short sea shipping between Takoradi and Tema ports, our inland waterways, whether we are actually using them to carry cargo and persons from the coastal areas to the hinterland and so on. We are properly utilizing our rivers and other inland waterways. That, I would say, is virtually non-existent. But the sad aspect of that is actually the aspect of shipping that our future as a country and the future of Africa depends upon. If we don't have short sea shipping properly established, we don't have coastal shipping properly established, we don't have inland waterways properly established, then we would be dependent upon other people's maritime services to carry our goods across, or bring our goods to us. And in today's world where geopolitics is shifting, and you have the desire of most countries to have their production centers close to their consumption, then the need for us directly benefiting from and profiting from our maritime industry, it becomes extremely important. And so that's how I describe it. Our long-haul shipping needs are being met by international shipping lines. Our local shipping needs are not properly being attended to. We virtually do not have a thriving local shipping industry owned by Ghanaians and profiting from by Ghanaians. And we don't also, by extension, we do not have an intra-African shipping industry, which is also critical for our prosperity as a country and for the prosperity of our continent. So this is how I'll say what the state is at the moment. So all the regulatory institutions we have, GMA, GSA, the Ghana Shippers Authority, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, the Volta Lake Transport Company or Authority, all these regulatory institutions, I say, are superintending over our international shipping industry. And we are actually import dependent as far as that is also concerned. I think that the figure that is being said to be what we are spending in importing shipping services is $2 billion. That's how much we are spending to buy other people's transport services. You cannot prosper as a country or as a continent if you don't have a thriving shipping industry. That's a fact. I mean, that's an economic fact. And we can't get away from that. So there's a lot to be done. On the one hand, as far as international trade is concerned, our international trade and therefore international transport services are concerned, there's a lot to be done to see how we can tap into a lot more of that value chain and then reduce the cost of importing and exporting. And then there's everything to be done to build from ground up a local shipping industry. So I'll stop there.
All right, so I'll come to Dr. Mohammed, but let me continue with you just briefly before I come to him. You have that experience, I mean, in terms of short sea shipping, and that comes about as a result of MV Adobia, which you were running. That was supposed to be a service provider tailored in the mode or in the make of short sea shipping. It started very beautifully. We loved it. We think that it was something that had a great potential. What were the challenges, if you would want to share with us?
That's a business that, or a service that is critical to any country's shipping industry.
Absolutely.
It's called the feeder service. And let me just give you an idea of what the solution we brought to the market then, and which solution is also required today. You know, if you take the Gulf of Guinea or West Africa, let me just put it that way, we have 4 main primary ports. They are primary because these ports are, the depths in terms of
drafts.
The drafts. The drafts for ships coming into these ports are quite deep. You know, so you have Lome, you have Lagos, other Lekki, you have Lekki port, and then some other Lagos port as well, and then you have Tema, and then you have Abidjan. These are the primary ports. Now, shipping works on the principle of economies of scale. The bigger, the more efficient. So shipping lines bringing cargo long haul from, say, China and Europe, the larger the vessels, the better, the more efficient, the less the cost to everybody.
Absolutely.
So if you have primary ports, then they call the primary ports. And the secondary ports are ports with shallow drafts. Some of them are river ports, with very shallow drafts, 4 meters, 5 meters in draft. Bigger ships can't call those ports. And those ports are also not well equipped in terms of loading and discharging gear. And so you would have a situation where a vessel called Tema with cargo also meant for Sierra Leone, Liberia, and all the other African countries, even to Nigeria, Calabar, and the rest of it. And so our solution was basically to serve as a feeder between the primary ports and the secondary ports distributing cargo. And by the way, that vessel was a 100-meter vessel with a manageable draft, its own gear, can discharge cargo in ports that didn't have those equipment to discharge cargo. And even that, you take Ghana, for example, between Takrady and Tema, we were loading cocoa in containers from Takrady into Tema for shipment out of Tema. I mean, we could take about 300 container loads of cocoa beans, and otherwise these 300 will go on 300 trucks. And will be plying between Takrady and Tema. It raises pollution and all of that. The most efficient form of transportation are ships. I don't want to use the word cheap, but the most efficient, cost efficient in every respect. So our solution was to distribute cargo from this primary ports to the secondary ports. And by the way, the vessel was a vessel that was flagged in Ghana, had Ghanaian crew, and was providing jobs for Ghanaians. And the revenue and the corporate income tax was also maintained here in Ghana. Our unfortunate position was that we had to borrow source of capital to support this business or to start this business locally. we're doing CD at 33% and dollar at 17% or 18%. Yeah. And of course, I mean, this was our startup business. It was difficult for us to keep pace with those high interest rates. And then, of course, the other challenge was that because of the lack of harmonization of laws across the continent, we had to deal with different segments of or regimes of regulation every port we called. So I had the privilege or the misfortune of going to every port and negotiating unilateral arrangements between my company and the ports. And so if I was calling Calabar, I had to go to Calabar port and negotiate something totally different. Because with a vessel like that, what works is for a feeder service, you have to be treated differently from the multinational shipping lines. Absolutely. The tariffs, the charges have to be lower. Yeah, and then also you needed priority berthing. You need to go in quickly and get out quickly. Yeah, sure. You cannot be in line waiting to call a port. Yeah. So we had to go and negotiate for Tema port, for example. We were fortunate we negotiated 35% discount on our call charges. And in the other ports, we had to do that unilaterally without any support from any state player or regulator. And the combination of all of that, and then of course we're dependent upon cargo. Of course cargo, local cargo, there was enough of it. But then of course we also depend upon the multinational shipping lines to drop those cargoes in the primary ports and us moving them intra-Africa. Sure. And that, if we were left to the mercies of the international shipping lines themselves, that business is not necessarily going to thrive. Yeah. And so, those were some of the challenges we faced. And I say that, since, we started initiating that here and subsequently had to fold up because of the challenges I've mentioned, especially the capital, challenges I've mentioned, that business, the need for that business remains today. It hasn't been solved. Yeah. And hence, if you were producing cargo in, say, Cameroon, and you wanted to bring it to Ghana, you probably need to it might take you a couple of weeks, or even sometimes a month or two, because you have to wait for some multinational shipping line to bring in some vessel that is going to be lighted in Algeciras and then come back and so on, and then the cost to you is going to be astronomical. You can't, and therefore our traders intra-Africa are still trading by road with all the tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, and impediments making it totally impossible for trade to happen. This is why intra-African trade still remains at 16% for a very long time of our trade, and it's not moving up.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. It's quite a sad scenario that you've painted out there, given the fact that you would have to go to the various ports and negotiate individually the tariffs for your vessel, when it's crystal clear that the authorities in these ports should have understood the angle from which you were coming and the service you were providing, and understand that it's for the betterment.
Yeah, unfortunately, the public sector, and this is some of the other things, instead of facilitating the trade, they sometimes you feel that they think they're doing you a favor. Absolutely, they're doing you a favor instead of facilitating. So that mistrust between public sector's role and the private sector is also forgetting that this ship alone was creating a whole host of jobs. Absolutely. And the impact was quite significant. We could have by now been the, if you like, the largest intra-African shipping line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
to cut 300 containers of cocoa beans.
Yeah, at one time.
To save the routes. That's it.
Yes.
300 trucks.
Trucks plying your roads. Yeah. And the thing about, some quickly on this as well. There's an angle to this that I wanted to just chip in. You see, shipping changed when unitization was introduced.
Yes.
So that it made it very easy to move cargo anywhere, standardized. Right. So when you brought cargo, a 20-footer container, everybody knows the weight of a 20-footer container, the size of a 20-footer container. And so you can multi-mode. You can, from a ship, you can put it on a truck, or you can put it on some other a rail and then move it.
Absolutely.
And so that's standardization made shipping, movement of cargo efficient. Now, what is happening because of the lack of a local shipping sector? Cargo comes in through Takoradi and Tema, and then you have containers being devanned or emptied and loaded on trucks. And some of these trucks, you see them bulging on the sides and even breaking your bridges.
Absolutely,
because they are overloaded.
Absolutely.
It's not standardized. And they are destroying your roads.
Absolutely.
And therefore, it's as if we take technology from, say, Europe all the way by sea, get to Tema port, then get rid of that technology and put our cargo on donkeys. That's how it seemed, you know. And so we're losing the advantage of that technology because we don't have almost a system in place to continue the benefits that derive from that technology.
Also,
Thank you.
That's true. Yes, let me come to Dr. Amakumensa. And you are, CAGL is into oil fields, logistics and all that. I just want to find out from you, what are the biggest challenges in your quest to operate in Ghana's maritime sector as far as your area is concerned?
Well, as the sector that we operate in, which is the oil fields logistics, our biggest barrier is access to capital.
Okay.
You know, maritime logistics require heavy upfront investment in vessels, equipment, specialized equipment, and all those things. But unfortunately, our local market does not have financing options for an industry like ours. Even the ones that have, they are what's the name?
Prohibitive.
Yes, prohibitive. They are way too expensive for you to want to engage them. Stanley said something. You're paying at 33%. Those days were even better. We got all the way to somewhere almost 52% interest. Wow. So you can imagine looking for funds to buy a vessel. You would be paying the vessel in USD, dollars, right? Sure. And then you are working in Ghana, receiving CD. And you did your forecast with maybe 1:3, and then all of a sudden it shifts to 1:17. I mean, everything is controllable. See, so funding is one. The governments look at the capital market and interests is another. That's inflation, and others is another. Issues like regulations, because you are dealing with a myriad of regulators. We have GPHA coming in, you have Petroleum Commission coming in, you have GRA coming in, you have GSA, Food and Drug. You know, we deal with everybody for just one thing. So you have to license with GPHA, is costing you money. Your license with Petroleum Commission is costing you money. Your license with Mineral Commission is costing you money. And just one sector. And the interesting part of it is most of these sectors all charge us in USD. Yes, we are not allowed to take USD.
In Ghana,
So you can imagine. We're working in a sector. It's as if it's set up in a way that those of us who have decided to go into that area, yes, you have decided to venture into that thing, so the system will have to work against you. That is how it feels. And I dare say, if you ask my other colleagues in the industry, they'll tell you. Because of that, most of us are moving out of the Ghana market. Yes. So for someone like myself, I'm in Ivory Coast today. CAGL is in Ivory Coast today.
Right.
We're in Conakry. We are in Senegal. Those places, you deal with the one-stop shop.
Right.
You don't have to be talking to GPHA, talk to GRA, talk to Petroleum Commission, talk to Minerals Commission, talk to Food and Drugs Board because of chemicals and others coming in, talk to EPA. I mean, you have to deal with national security. It's too cumbersome.
Can you not advocate for such a one-stop shop to create for you?
We are discussing with the Chamber of Shipping to see if they can bring the Shipping Master's Office back into the Commissioner of Shipping, so that we have a one-stop shop where we deal everything with just that one person. Because
is it a situation with the countries you've mentioned, Cote d'Ivoire, Conakry?
Most of them you're dealing with one person. Most of them, you go there. Yes, initially for your registration and others, they will tell you, okay, you have to register with the ministry and this and that and that. But when you are done with that, when you are operating, there's one person you are dealing with, and that's it.
Right.
I mean, interestingly, in Ghana, for instance, you end up creating, you tell us we should do paperless at the port, right? We do everything online, yet we have to print the paper and be walking around from shop to shop, which is medieval.
I get it. Okay, so let's take a look at the specific regulatory and bureaucratic hurdles that makes it difficult for you to thrive. You just mentioned some where you have to go and print and move from one office to the other, one organization to the other, one agency to the other, and all that.
And most of them are overlapping. Most of them. I mean, you have to key it into the system for FDA to approve. You key the same thing into system for EPA to approve. You key the same thing into the system for GRA to approve. And then you have to print that thing again and go around and work on their offices with the same thing again. How does this improve our
efficiency?
Yes, increase efficiency in the maritime sector. So the lack of enforcement of the government's own regulation. Because if you tell us that you want everything to be done on the system, make sure that you tell all your state apparatus, look, this time around we are moving to a system, when they key it in the system, and that's it.
Right.
You don't tell me to go invest funds, money into acquiring those systems, getting it done, only for you to throw the system away and then tell me to walk around with paper. The other part is lack of local content enforcement. Like what he said. If the government at the time had insisted that, look, you the foreign companies, when you bring in your cargoes, bring them to the primary ports, and then our local companies will do the cabotage. Yes. We have it. Is it being enforced? No.
It's not being enforced.
You have a lot of these foreign companies going even into the realms of customs clearance at the ports, which are things that the government needs to look at.
Absolutely.
If you ask me.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Isaac Amwaku-Mensah is the president and founder of CAGL Group. He's with us in the studios. We also have in the studios Mr. Stanley Rajakoshi Aholu, President, Ghana Chamber of Shipping. And indeed, joining us via Zoom is Madam Maria Ogubo. Yes. Ogubo. Yeah, I'll come to you, please. We're going for now. We'll have to go for a break. When we return, then we'll continue the discussion, which will also activate the phone lines for people to call in and share their thoughts with the rest of the world. So please do stay with us. This is Lion Port here on Metropolitan Television.
Energy brings you quality choices with Goil Super XP, available in many Goil stations nationwide. It is fortified with special additives that help your engine perform better and use less fuel. Branch into a Goil station today and energize your ride with Goil Super XP, compatible with most vehicles. Goil Super XP, Wufilia, huh? Wubefi. Goil, good energy. Jean yeah, dear.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Yeah. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Child, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is, you still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
Business and life can be like the sea sometimes. Sometimes serene, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, and at times it brings the unexpected. However it is like, trust Phoenix Insurance for your home, car, business, and marine insurance needs. Call 0302-246-319 or 0243-690-492.
At Phoenix, you experience a delightful service delivered with wisdom.
You're welcome back. This is our report here on Metro TV, and tonight we are taking a look at Ghana's shipping industry and how we can empower the private sector for growth. With us in the studios tonight, Mr. Stanley Raja Aholu, who is the president of the Ghana Chamber of Shipping. Indeed, we also have in the studios Dr. Isaac Amaku-Mensah, who is the president and founder of CAGL Group, and indeed, Madam Maria Ogugbo, who is a maritime consultant. She's joined us via Zoom. There she is. Let me come to you, Madam Maria, and find out from you how we can, as a country, improve the environment for private sector-led infrastructure projects in the shipping industry. Are there any prescriptions you would want to proffer?
Yes, thanks for that, Kennedy. So, private sector needs support in order to be able to carry out these large infrastructure projects. The first way of doing that would be to de-risk the project or de-risk the investment for private sector. How can this be done? For example, the laws. If we have laws on our books and they are enforced properly, then there's certainty and there's clarity about the regulatory environment within which the private sector is operating. The second way is for government, if possible, to make available some of its resources to de-risk projects or to support private sector to engage or to participate in these projects. Let me give you an example. Earlier on, I talked about how early stage project financing was difficult to find, and how it was a challenge that we had to overcome. If, for example, there was a maritime development fund, maybe managed by GMA or GSA, that fund could provide, say, $1 million in early stage funding to projects that are, in their view, in line with Ghana's maritime strategy.
Right.
So that that money could fund that development and then move the project a little bit up the risk ladder in order for external funding, bank funding to come through to support the project. And then thirdly, I think Mr. Holu spoke about that. It's really about trust. If we can improve the relationships between private sector and public sector, that would help to encourage more investments in the maritime space.
All right, so let's digress from there and come to emissions.
Well, Kennedy, before you
Right.
digress, I think this point has to be made forcefully about creating a shipping development fund.
Yes, sure.
Presently, if you look across the globe, India is a very good example.
Right.
India is today partnering with CMA CGM and some other Maersk or some other shipping line,
yes,
and to create exactly that for India's local shipping sector. If you take, for example, Africa,
right,
the AFCFTA
yes, is
set to, if the implementation goes ahead, by 2045, right? Intra-African trade would have increased by 45%.
Right.
But
from the current 16%.
From the current 16%. In order for that to happen, AFCFTA estimates that Africa would need $4 billion to purchase the 135 ships that Africa needs for its intra-Africa shipping sector.
Right.
Now, we shouldn't expect anybody else to fund that. Now, sometimes the question is, where is the money coming from? Are we going to the international organizations to get this, or going to some other foreign entities? They're also looking after their own interests.
Yes.
If you take, for example, between GSA and GMA, there's liquidity in terms of cash.
Right.
I mean, these institutions have revenues in tens of millions of dollars annually. 2% of the gross freight value of a shipment to or from the country, from Ghana, by a carrier that operates in the country, goes to GMA and GSA, and they share it 50-50. Part of this money can provide seed money for local shipping, maritime development sector. So I think attention ought to be paid to this.
Right.
Nobody's going to come in and solve this problem for us. Why would anybody solve it for us if we are dependent on them for our maritime transport services? We are paying for it.
Yeah.
We are importing that, and they are making money from us. So why would anybody help us to get out of this problem if we don't solve it ourselves? And I'm not only talking about Ghana. I'm talking about the continent.
Right.
If you take insurance, for example, cargo insurance.
Yeah.
We're throwing money away. Yeah. We have insurance entities in this country that could make do with most of that, a lot of that premium that we pay out to foreign insurance companies. In excess of $600 million a year on cargo insurance.
To add to what he's saying, we have a development bank today for the country.
Yes.
We need to have a structured or well-tailored.
All right, before you continue, let me activate the phone line so that if we can pick a few calls. The number to dial will be shown on your screen. pretty shortly. 0245-834980, 0245-834980. Yeah, right there on your screen. So if you want to contribute to the discussion, please, you're free to call in.
Yeah, as I was saying,
Dr. Mensah,
today we have a development bank as a country. Government needs to create a desk in that development bank
for the shipping
sector. You know, well-tailored financing models supported by government-backed guarantees.
Right.
So that if I go there and I need funds for any maritime or shipping something, I fall under that bracket.
Right.
Because we are not like the typical buying and selling that, you know, that you just go and then, no.
Yeah, sure.
It takes time to mature.
And they are capital intensive projects as
well.
They
are very capital intensive. And because of the maturity period, we need that breathing space to let it grow.
Right.
Today, the whole sector is flooded by the multinationals because they are getting very good facilities to be able to purchase these assets. If Aholu had his at maybe 5% or something, today he would have been comfortable still running. Because if you go to a place like Ivory Coast today, facilities that the government give or the banks are giving, our own EcoBank and others, are giving 5% to 11%. That's the maximum.
Right.
11%.
Okay, 11%. We'll continue from there, but let's go into the phone lines and welcome Nana Kwame. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Awesome. Can you please speak up a bit, please?
Thank you for the program.
Awesome. Thank you, too.
Basically, I'm a student at the Regional Maritime Academy. I'm
doing
my master's there.
Okay.
I'm in shipping and logistics.
Right. Please go ahead,
okay. I think we are not educating the public more about this maritime industry. So I think we need more education. The government should also make policies that will help the maritime industries. Yes, and also they should involve the local in the business that much. Especially when you go to the Volta Lake areas, there's a lot of opportunities there that we can use by this transport rather than using the roads to transport. And it's a great business. And if the government should be able to involve the businessmen, they will just get more profit from it. Thank you so much, sir.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, Nana Kwame. We are grateful to you for your time. Yes, 11%.
Yes. I was saying, I mean, if you compare, the only reason why we have the foreign companies flooding this market, importing that $2 billion maritime or shipping service, is because those companies are getting very good rates to be able to acquire the assets they need to come and serve us.
Right.
If our government, that's the government of Ghana, does not create a fund or create a desk at a development bank purposely tailored for those of us in the shipping sector, then I don't think we'll make any progress.
All right, so let's go on to the phone lines straight to Takrady and welcome Kojo onto the program. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Awesome, great to hear from you. Please speak up.
Thank you very much for such an educative program.
Thank you, sir.
I think you that it is coming up. But with the stories that you are telling, especially with the Holy Spirit, I don't know, it appears similar to the railway story, where there seems to be a deliberate means to collapse some of these systems that can, transport systems that can supply bulk, supply at very cheaper rates, and then helping us in the long run, cutting down costs. But we realize that there is that deliberate thing because the owners of these people who are going to destroy it in the long run, destroying the environment at the end of the day, and then benefiting parochially, are those who are in the helm of our affairs and are not helping. But this is a very clear story of how it's going to help our industry grow. But yet, we are not helping. So why will this happen? And this thing is still going on. Railway has collapsed to almost its end. And there's nothing it seems to be. We are only speaking about it. And this, what you spoke about, is a perfect, model that can be done, that can help us in the long run. So I think we should also, sometimes we should go on the policy makers, those who are deliberately preventing this thing from happening. Sometimes you may think that we are being too harsh, but that is what is supposed to be done. That's my view. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Kojo. We are grateful to you for your call all the way from Takrady. Yeah, so I think I was still with Madam Maria, yes, when Mr. Hulu came in. I just want to find out, in terms of zero net emissions, the plans are far afoot for us to hit there by 2050. What do you think are the challenges that this may pose for Ghana? Are we likely to get there? And what should we be doing?
Kennedy.
Yes.
Yeah, so incidentally, I'm in London where tomorrow begins the 83rd meeting of the Marine Environmental Protection Committee of the International Maritime Organization, where crucial decisions are going to be taken about how to get shipping industry to achieve net zero by 2050. Now, decarbonization means that ships will have to use fuels that emit less carbon and therefore be more friendly for the environment. But these new fuels, these cleaner fuels, are almost 4 times more expensive than our traditional diesel that they use now, which means that cost differential between diesel and hydrogen-based fuels, which are have zero carbon, that cost differential needs to be covered. And that means that every user of shipping services across the world will have to pay a little more extra to compensate for the additional cost that comes from using cleaner fuels.
Right.
For us in Africa and in Ghana, it's a bit more, we pay a little more, disproportionately more as a result of the existing, different existing freight imbalances that we have. So that's one factor, cost will go up. Also, in terms of the fleet we have now, if they may struggle, the ships on our register may struggle to comply with the fuel intensity targets that may be set, and so we may end up with them being obsolete or uneconomic to operate. But there are also advantages that we need to. Let me just take the opportunity to highlight, because Ghana has immense natural resources, at least for solar, and so decarbonization puts us in a good position to embrace green technologies and adopt solar and battery power solutions in our ports in Tema and Jakarta, so that ships that are looking to comply will be able to do so when they come to Ghana, because then they can switch off their engines and emit less, and that means their compliance costs will be lower. We also have the opportunity to fill in the gap of a shortage of seafarers globally. There are reports which show that by 2026, there could be as many as 90,000 seafarers shortfall in the global shipping community. Now, Ghana is well placed to be able to fill in that gap quite significantly. For starters, our country is on the IMO whitelist, which means that we are recognized as implementing the STCW convention effectively, and so Ghanaian seafarers are well trained, well qualified. We also have youthful population who are unemployed, and we have the Regional Maritime University in Ghana. So that puts us in a good stead to take advantage of decarbonization and produce workforce to support the industry.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. I think time is not our friend at this juncture. I would like to say big thanks to you for obliging us, even though you are very busy over there in London. We're grateful to you, Madam Maria Obugbo, who's a maritime consultant. You just heard her. We're grateful to you. Anytime, sure, we would have a discussion again, and we're very certain that you will oblige us when we reach out to you once again.
Okay, thank you.
And enjoy your stay in London. We'll be looking forward to seeing you back here in Ghana when you're done. So let me come to Mr. Aholu and find out from you if there are any policy recommendations you would want to make to propose to encourage private investment in short sea shipping. You mentioned some what we need to do, but is there any thing you'd want to add?
Well, I think it's important that our policy, right now we have the cabotage law,
yes,
which is a national cabotage.
Yes, you mentioned, yeah.
You mentioned that, but it's not fit for purpose in the sense that it has to be looked at from a continental standpoint.
Right.
And then there has to be some financial support for developing local shipping industry. Right. We talk about, and Maria talks about the opportunities that the decarbonization drive presents Africa and Ghana.
Yes.
So I said earlier that we don't have a local shipping industry. So the 135 ships that are required for AFCFTA's optimization can all be green ships.
Yes.
So there should be a
deliberate
policy focus to get ships that are operating on alternative fuels.
Yes.
Now we're talking about alternative fuels. We're talking about ammonia. We're talking about LPG. We're talking about green hydrogen and the rest of them. Now the feedstock for those alternative fuels are abundant here, and so we can create bunkering points and take advantage of this greening on the shipping sector.
Absolutely.
Create bunkering points for international shipping.
Yeah.
When we had the Red Sea crisis and ships were diverted from the Suez Canal to along the Cape of Good Hope, they had to stop and fuel somewhere in a longer distance. So this route has become a very important route, and so we need to be able to provide the services like bunkering for alternative fuels along this route. Right. Ghana can take advantage of this. We also have the global fleet is old, and because of decarbonization, the global fleet, it is estimated that 15,000 ships would have to be recycled, broken up. Yeah, sure. There is an opportunity to begin to look at the possibility of creating a ship recycling plant. The Hong Kong Convention that allows for a greening of that industry is coming into effect in June this year.
Right.
That is another policy direction that we can look at. We have the infrastructure already, and this has to be looked at so that we can take advantage of that and be able to participate in the global shipping industry. This is also something that is important to do. And the private sector's involvement in this has to be a deliberate effort. Governments always say, and this is not to knock the public sector, they have a role to play. The regulators in our industry are doing a fantastic job to a very large extent in regulating international shipping. But I think that there has to be a deliberate effort to empower and capacitate the private sector through the things we have talked about to enable private sector investment and participation. If we give you just a small example of that, the most successful terminal along the Gulf of Guinea now is MPS terminal. MPS is owned 70% by foreign entities. And Ghana only has, I don't know what it's, maybe 10% and a little above. Now, but it took the likes of Azuma Banda.
May so rest in peace.
May so rest in peace. A private sector trailblazer to enable us even get part of that slice of the cake through his experience and networks. And so it's important. Private sector is efficient in deploying capital and is also efficient in utilization of that capital. So it's important that that all these opportunities be looked at, and we intentionally draw the private sector into this sector, which is critical to our progress as an economy.
Absolutely. Awesome. Let me take your last words, Doc, and I find out from you what the most important areas for private sector growth in the shipping industry in Ghana is.
Well, if we're looking at the areas for private sector growth in the shipping industry in Ghana, we should be looking at the offshore support services.
Okay.
The Trump and the feeder services like Stanley spoke about. And then, with this big push for the Africa Continental Free Trade, we need these feeder services to move around. We would need some cold chain and specialized cargo logistics for this agribusiness that the government says is going to drive, because now the ministry has actually been, a part of it has been named as agribusiness. So we would need to have specialized vessels and containers that can take our fresh fruits, fresh vegetables and others to all the destinations that needs to go. So I'll say these three things. Offshore support vessels to support our oil and gas sector, and not only Ghana's oil and gas sector, because if you look at it from the perspective of the likes of the Schlumbergers and the others, they create a central platform or base, and then they move their tools from there to the other countries. Yes. So that feeds directly into our African free trade agreement things.
Yeah.
Then the
feeder services,
as I spoke about the vessels and feeder services, and then the coaching.
Awesome.
Kennedy, and just a quick one to add to that. And another area we need to look at, creates an opportunity for private sector participation, is bulk shipping.
Okay.
Bulk shipping.
Right.
Because we have the cargo, bulk cargo, in cocoa, in manganese, in bauxite.
Yes.
This we are exporting. And so there's no reason why we cannot develop a bulk shipping sector.
Yes.
Based upon our control of the cargo. So that's another area that private sector can be encouraged to look at. And get.
But I would like to add that all this we're talking about needs a deliberate government backing.
Right. Sure.
Because if the government doesn't decide that, look, we are going to develop our shipping industry, it's not going to happen.
Okay. So some messages here before we wrap up. This one says, this one's from Nadia and Sakmono. Your delivery was so practical, Dr. Mwaku. We need more honest discussions like this about doing business in Ghana's shipping sector. Ben Azuri in Accra says, fantastic submission. Maria, especially love your points about making maritime infrastructure projects bankable. Mr. Sanle, what's your view on how to better organize the domestic shipping community into a stronger lobbying force? And on this one, I think that I would want to be an advocate. I think the four of us can start. Yourself, Mr. Aholu, and then Madam Mario can start an advocacy for the Maritime Development Fund. I'm more than willing to join.
They should all join the chamber. You should join the chamber of shipping. Doc is part of the chamber of shipping.
Right.
We are opening you into the chamber of shipping.
I'll be more than glad to join. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bismarck in Tema says, the question goes to this question goes to Maria. How do you see project finance evolving in Africa's maritime space? Are local banks ready to support such big-ticket investments? And the last one is from Inshira in Takrady. She says, I don't know whether it's a he or she. It says, Dr. Makumensa, you've been in this space for a while. Do you think Ghana's current business climate encourages long-term investment in shipping logistics? That's Lawrence in Kumasi. Well, these are messages that have come in. I would entreat you to watch the abridged version of Iron Port on Wednesday. We'll go to our resource persons, get the answers, and then send them to you via that medium. And so we'd like to say a big thanks to our guests in the studios, Mr. Stanley Raja Koshi Aholu, President, Ghana Chamber of Shipping, Dr. Isaac Amwaku Mensah, President and founder of CAGL Group, and indeed, Madam Maria Obugo, who is the maritime consultant who's joined us via Zoom all the way from London. We're grateful to you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming for report. And like I said, I'm sure we'll definitely be having another discussion shortly or very soon. And when we call you, you would oblige us. We'd like to say a big thanks to our sponsors, Ghana Revenue Authority, PLC, Marine Insurance, Ghana Link Services, Marine Port Services, and Insurance. Remember, the show is proudly powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority-GPHA. God willing, next week we shall bounce back with another wonderful edition of your favorite Iron Port program. We invite you to keep watching the rest of our programs here and watch the abridged version of Iron Port on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. My name is Kennedy Mona. We wish you a super week ahead, and we thank you so much for choosing us. Have a blessed evening.